Spicy. Welcome back to our cottage farmstead kitchen. Today is Saturday, which for us is meal prep day, and spring is here. So we're trying to quickly eat through everything that we preserved last year. So frozen green beans, carrots, onions, any other sort of crop that we might have had from last year, because we're gonna have our harvest coming in before we know it. And I have help today, which is nice. So we'll be putting together one of my favorite recipes for cleaning out the freezer. It's a soup recipe that I had growing up that we've adapted over the years just to fit whatever comes out of the freezer. It has a really spicy base to it that is similar to like a Bloody Mary flavor, and it's really, really good, and you can put all sorts of vegetables in it. So we'll take you along as we make our clean out the freezer vegetable soup. All right, as you can see, our freezer is full. So we're trying to empty it out. So we are looking for this recipe, a 28-ounce bag of canned or frozen tomatoes. Looking for about 3 cups of green beans. We need carrots. Actually, I think we have some carrots in our freezer inside, but the onions we'll need. Do we have any corn out here still, or is that in the freezer inside?
I think that might be in the freezer inside.
All right. I think that'll get some stuff out of this freezer for this meal. The original recipe calls for 2 bottles of Mr. and Mrs. T's Bloody Mary mix to make the flavor of the base of the soup. Due to some of my food restrictions and allergies, I can't consume the pre-made mix, so we make our own. We didn't make or preserve our own tomato juice this past year, so we just use store-bought. And then we take a lot of herbs, some of them that we preserved ourselves, and then make a Bloody Mary base to it. I'll include this recipe in a link below to our blog. The original recipe also called for 6 bouillon cubes, and that's definitely something I can't eat when I'm sensitive to glutamate. So we found a vegetarian broth mix on someone else's blog, and I can link to that down below as well. But we use this as a replacement. It's just using some of the spices and herbs that you already have in your cabinet in order to make a similar broth base. So first things first, we're gonna cut our meat into bite-sized pieces. We currently don't raise our own beef cattle for meat, but we do go to a local butcher who has some very delicious steak tips that we use for our stew beef. Meanwhile, while he's chopping up the meat and browning it, I will be thawing 2 cups of chopped onions to start sauteing them. So the tomato juice is pretty much one of the few things that we didn't raise ourselves that's going in this recipe. We just didn't take the time when in the middle of high canning season to make juice. But we raise these cowpeas. So this is another thing that we're just getting out of our pantry before we have tons of them coming in, because they produce prolifically in our climate down here. And then dump the browned meat in. This is essentially just a dump and go recipe for most of the components, especially if you have them all preserved already in the freezer or in canning jars. Cabbage is growing fresh outside for us this time of year, so we'll be doing some fresh shredded cabbage to go in the soup as well. So the cabbage is the last thing that we'll be adding to our soup, but you can put in things like lima beans, black-eyed peas, potatoes, any other thing that you're trying to use up from last year so that you can get ready for this coming season. You can stir into this soup. So the secret to this recipe is actually the spice blend that goes into the soup. That's why you can put just about any vegetable into it. There are a lot of different spices and herbs that go into this, so I will link to the recipe below so that you can have a full list of everything that went into this recipe. we just let it simmer for about 30 minutes or so to let the flavors incorporate and the frozen vegetables to cook. We actually really like the soup better the second day because the flavors have a chance to meld and it's really delicious. So the soup also freezes really great. So we usually make this really large pot, even though it's just the two of us, because then we can freeze it in individual or 2 serving size containers. And then we're able to take it for quick lunches, or we forgot to cook dinner, or sometimes we even take it with us on vacation because it makes a quick microwave meal in a hotel room. Thank you for joining us in the Cottage Farmstead kitchen on meal prep day this week. We hope you enjoy this recipe as much as we do.